How's it going, everyone? Welcome back to the homestead. We're working on the new garden section once again, getting ready to put some T-posts in for the fencing. Not going to do actual fencing, we'll get to that in a little bit, but I have a little surprise to show you guys. That's right, I tilled up 7 rows using that rototiller the other day, so we're going to plant a whole lot more vegetables and a whole lot more potatoes than I even expected. Now, we may not fill up all those rows, this might just be for next year. But thankfully, it's just getting the infrastructure in place for when we do want to fill all those beautiful rows with veggies. Before we start driving those T-posts, however, I really want to get this raised bed finished. And the first thing we have to do to get that done is drill the final holes in the longer sections. We obviously have the 2 shorter sections all done, all put together. Now it's just time for the big guys. And I'm not going to be able to drive the first piece of rebar and pivot the logs out of the way like I did with the shorter sections, because they're just going to be way too long, putting too much force on that one piece of rebar. So what we're doing, you can probably see already, I jammed a Sharpie in the first hole, and then I just ran the tape measure down, and we're going to drill the second hole at 4 feet, the third hole at 7 feet, and do that for all the logs. And since that first hole lines up, the subsequent holes should also line up. Another thing that I'm trying to do is drive 2 pieces of rebar at the same time. And the reason I'm trying to do that, all those holes should line up in the first place. And if I have one of the ends just kind of moving any which way and not staying straight as compared to the other end that I would be lifting up, I'm just gonna be fighting that section of wall. So hopefully this is gonna make it a little bit easier. I'm not sure, I honestly don't know what I'm doing here. I think some of you guys think I'm joking when I say that, but I honestly don't know what I'm doing. This is my first time doing anything like this, so you guys are learning with me. Thankfully these logs are really dry, so I'm not having too much issue moving them. But if I was trying to do what I did last time, like pivot the logs out of the way to drill the holes, it'd be a nightmare with these. So I think this is gonna be the ticket. So I'm working on the final section and I almost have it done, but I just wanted to show you guys that these holes over here, the ones that I measured out, do not line up. You could see a distinct curve going through the rebar. And then on the last piece, I completely misjudged where that hole was supposed to go. But thankfully, since the rebar was rounded off and kind of made into a point, I'm basically just driving it through like a nail. And it's working out pretty well so far. All right, so the raised bed is done. Well, almost done. Unfortunately, I didn't take into account the curve of the logs going in a different direction. I got them to where they all sat on top of each other nice, but then of course, the top and bottom log here both curve out away from the planting bed, and so does that side, but I think that side is just because I didn't line it up properly. So you could already see my solution, or what might be my solution. I have a piece of wood jammed in there. I'm gonna do the same over here, but then what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna drive some rebar going through this wall into that wall. And that way, not only are we gonna lock in the pieces of wood that are gonna be inside here to fill those gaps, but we're also gonna tie all the walls together and not even have to go out and buy the L brackets. All of this is gonna be out of scrap besides the chicken wire. That's awesome. So let's get working. So we're out today connecting all the walls together. You can see we drove one piece of rebar here, another one down here, and then we just have these scrap pieces that are gonna fill those gaps. We're gonna do the same thing over here. We got one in place. Rebar's not in place yet, but that piece is gonna go there. This scrap piece is gonna go like that, and then we're gonna be done. With all the rebar driven in place and all the sides tied together, this raised bed is done. The only thing we have to do is trim up the excess chicken wire, fill it with dirt, and then we could get to planting. And let me tell you, this thing is solid as a rock, man. Good to go. Now begins the fun part, filling up this raised bed with a whole bunch of soil. Now I know this 1 yard isn't gonna fill up this entire bed, so we're gonna have to make a couple trips, but through the magic of video editing, you get to skip to when the raised bed is already filled up with soil. And the soil we went with is half black topsoil and half compost. And yes, it's store-bought compost, but I think it'll work just fine. The way they loaded it up, you know, they would just put one on top of the other. So when I'm shoveling it in, it's not perfectly mixed up. Like you could see there's some compost over here and obviously some more black soil over there, but it should be mixed up enough. It'll all come out in the wash at least. And before I fill up the former brooder tank with soil, I just want to point out that we are drilling holes in the bottom for drainage. Now these are not the final holes, these are just the pilots, but unfortunately my drill's battery died, so I have to come back a little later to drill the 1/2-inch holes. But again, we want to have some drainage through here because if we didn't drill any holes, you're going to get some root rot, you're going to get waterlogged soil, so we want to avoid that the best we can. Now that we filled up both the beds with soil, we can fence this area off and get ready to plant. But with that being said, we are going to amend both the beds as well as the rows with some different stuff. For the rows, we're going to be adding compost, and for both the beds and the rows, we're going to be adding beneficial fungi. The idea behind the fungi is they're going to hopefully help the roots out to promote their health, allow the uptake of nutrients to be a little bit better, the uptake of water to be a little bit better, and just promote the overall health of the plant. So we're going to try it out. Big day today. I just picked up the compost. We're going to be amending the rows as well as the first garden, and then we're going to get to planting. I'm looking forward to this. Now, even though we took a rototiller to all of these rows, I'm still having to go through each individual one, take out the larger chunks of grass, weeds, all that stuff, and kick it over to the side because we don't want that growing in our vegetable plot. And even though it's very laborious and time consuming, there's no reason to amend the soil if we're not going to take out the weeds and native grass and whatnot, because that'll just overtake any vegetables or potatoes that we try to plant. So it has to get done. Good morning, everyone. Here's the situation. I spent all day yesterday only prepping 3 rows because the rototiller only did about 50% of the work I was hoping it would do. So I have to go through and finish the other 4 rows today, and hopefully we could get at least some of the potatoes, some of the seeds in the ground today. Sorry about the sun. Because I planted the garden a year ago to the day today, so I don't want to be behind schedule. But then again, I do have about 5 to 6 times the garden space that I did last year, and it took me all day to plant the garden last year, so I have to be kind to myself and be kind to your guys' self as well. Hey, you're so silly. So I'm getting a little sick and tired of working on these rows and not planting anything. So that's what we're gonna do. I'm gonna haul the rest of this compost over to the first garden, and we're gonna amend that garden bed and start planting finally. I do have 3 rows ready to go, ready to plant in. So we're gonna plant in those, plant in the first garden, and then come back to work on the rest of the rows. It's just too much work, it's taking too much time, and I wanna get something in the ground. So you can see that I'm very imprecisely spreading this compost, but I'm sure it's gonna work just fine. I'm gonna spread a little bit more after I rake this in. Just wanna get it really rich. By the way, there's that Swiss chard that was growing last year. It's still going, baby. We still have a little bit more to go, but then we'll be planting. I do have a list. This area is going to be carrots. I'm also going to do some parsley, which is similar to carrots in the way that grows, at least. That's what I've seen. We're going to do some different onions, a whole bunch of lettuce and spinach, a couple potatoes over here. I'm going to try to trick the gopher that ate all of my potatoes. Going to do some here and some over in the other garden as well as in that raised bed. So anyways, let's go. Also, I've gotten comments before saying that I talk too much and explain things too much. Let me know in the comments down below. Do you want to see me explain things more, or do you want to see more B-roll footage when I make these videos? It's up to you guys, because I make these videos for you after all. This is literally all I'm doing. Just kind of shake the shovel a bit, walk along, make sure you give a pretty even coating across the entire bed. That's it. Rake it in after. I brought you guys inside so we could talk about what all we're going to be planting today. And I guarantee we're not going to get all this in the ground because it's already about 3 o'clock or so. But we're going to do the best we can. So for the raised bed, we made out logs. These are heritage potatoes. We're going to put all these in the raised bed. In the former brooder, we have 2 different types of bunching onions, or green onions as I call them. We're going to put those in the former brooder, the metal raised bed. And then all of these are going to be going in the first garden. And starting it off, we have 2 packs of each type of carrot. You can see the different names there. We also have 1 pack of Hamburg root parsley, 2 ruby red onions, 1 pack of heirloom mustard, Lisbon onions, Golden Globe turnip, 3 Utah yellow Spanish sweet, or sweet Spanish, excuse me. One of these is a leftover from last year, so I'm not sure how that's going to sprout, but I figured I'd toss it in anyways. I have 2 different types of spinach, have double of these, some Tango red leaf lettuce, iceberg lettuce, Mizuna, I think I said that right, Mizuna mustard, Cimarron lettuce, and Tango leaf lettuce. So this is going to be a good start. Like I say, I can't imagine we're going to get all of this in the ground. And here's the different potatoes we have to choose from. Now once again, the heirloom potatoes are going to be going in the log raised bed, but we have Yukon Gold, Huckleberry, and Russet Burbank. Now Russets and Yukon Gold are pretty well known, but I had to try the Huckleberries because I love Huckleberries. I want to try growing some interesting stuff whenever I do this, and I think purple potatoes, good way to do that. So I set aside about 10 or so potatoes to plant over in the first garden as a little bit of a control group once again, because I was just running out of space to put these guys. You could already see that they're pretty well crammed together. I did already plant all the ones along this wall here, but yeah, they're already a little too cramped for how I would like it, but I'm sure they'll be okay. The spare ones, like I said, are going to be our control group going over in the first garden. So I'm getting ready to mix up some chicken feed right now, and I had to show you guys this. Both of these are 5-pound bags of oyster shells. One of them is from Purina, one of them is from a different brand, but they're still 5-pound bags of oyster shells. The Purina I bought about 6 to 7 months ago. This bag I bought last week. Let's take a look at the prices here. $5, $9.79. Both 5-pound bags of oyster shells, just one purchased a lot later than the other. So we're gonna try something a little bit different with the chickens today. I got this scratch mix, which is cracked corn and wheat, and we're just gonna spread that all across the run area of the chicken coop. But we're also gonna allow these gals to free range today. I wanna see how they do. I'm gonna be working near the shop so I could keep an eye on them. And you can see that they just wanna get to some new ground, so we're gonna let them free. So this is a big moment. There goes the first one. We are finally allowing them to go outside. Now, they've gone outside on their own, but this is the first time that we're allowing them to free range with permission. Well, they are clearly enjoying the freedom, but they're still staying pretty close to the gated entrance. And I like that because if they need to run back inside the coop, if a dog comes, cat, predator, whatever, they can get inside pretty fast. But like I said, I'm going to be out here watching them for the whole day, at least most of the day, and see how they do. There's 3 of the birds, 2 barred rocks and a buff Orpington. Really loving the freedom. So planting has been going great. This entire row right here is all the lettuce and spinach. That entire thing is filled up with seeds. The carrots are all along here so far. I only have half the carrots in the ground. You can see a couple rows that I have cut out and spaced. So that's where some more carrots are gonna go. And I'd say we're gonna have about a quarter of this garden bed, maybe a little bit less, but a good amount open for some extra stuff. So maybe tomatoes, peppers, we'll see what we put in the ground, but I'm not gonna leave it open. And I do have a fair amount of extra seeds and beans to plant as well, but I'm figuring the majority of those are gonna go over into the other rows. For this garden, on the other hand, like I said, I would love to plant some tomatoes, some peppers, some plants that I can't start from seed and that I have to get from a nursery or start from seed myself, but it's a little too late to do that. So we're gonna go out and buy some extra plants if we have any extra space, and I guarantee we're gonna have some extra space. All right, so this whole garden is basically done being planted, all except for the potatoes and onions, which I'm gonna do a little later because I wanna focus on getting this section all squared away. That being said though, if you notice that used seed pack right there for the Hamburg root parsley, that is the end of the root vegetables, the carrots, and obviously the parsley section going from there all the way around up to where that bucket is. And then once again, we have all the lettuce and spinach right along here. So this entire back section, I would say roughly a quarter. I was almost correct on that. Roughly a quarter we're gonna fill with, who knows, like I said, peppers, tomatoes, maybe some zucchini plants. I don't know. We're gonna go to the store and see what they have and hopefully get some more plants in the ground. I apologize for the lighting, but we just got back from town and I got a couple plants. I have 3 tomato plants and 2 pepper plants. We have a Better Bell pepper, an Ancho 101 pepper, Early Girl tomato. Oh, let's see. What do we got here? Sweet 100 tomato and Aroma tomato. But we are going to have a frost tonight, so we're going to use my car as kind of a makeshift greenhouse. I'm sure it'll work just fine. It's going to provide all the plants with enough warmth as well as enough sun, so I think it'll work for the night. And I think that's going to wrap this video up, ladies and gentlemen. My anxiety's just kind of been up and down this past week or so, and today's just one of those higher days than usual. And no, it's not because yesterday was 420 either, but I think I got enough done in the garden to deserve a break. We planted this entire garden besides that little row of potatoes, as well as the peppers and tomatoes that we just got. But like I said, there's going to be a frost anyway, so we can't plant those today. And then in the other garden, we already planted the raised bed out with potatoes, as well as the former brooder with onions. So I think we did okay. We're gonna have to figure out what's gonna go in the other rows, but that's gonna take a little bit of time and planning on my part. And I wanna get inside and play some guitar. So I hope you guys take care of yourselves. Have a great day, have a great week, and thank you for watching. Think for yourself, shoot straight, and I will see you next time.